Send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Julia Janae, and to attorney Brad Edwards. Still with us, we have Josh Schiffer and Jack Rice. Let's talk about this case now. First of all, are you surprised, Josh, by the sentence of 20 years?
No, it was very clear. The evidence was clear. The trial was clear. Judge was going to agree much more heavily with the federal government's recommendation than the defense.
All right, what's next? I know that we talked off air, Jack, about a possibility. Could she use any of her knowledge? Knowledge is power. Could she use any knowledge she has about any other individuals involved in any of this activity to get a better deal than 20 years, theoretically?
There's a black book out there. You have just heard that lawyer talk about this. Everybody knows there's more out there. She knows there's more out there. Her lawyers know that there's more out there. And I think it was inevitable she was going to do somewhere in this range. But the power that she potentially has is all of that information. She has the ability to potentially provide that to all of these other victims who are out there. And that could mean a lot. And the feds could come back and say, we're going to reconsider what we're doing here. But they're going to let her sit for, I don't know. Josh, what do you think? 2 months, 3 months, 6 months?
Give her enough time to really get used to the new surroundings. And Jack and I have talked about this for the whole case, that really the work as a lawyer doesn't stop with sentencing. Your client, especially someone with the kind of information she has, she could significantly better her condition and future by providing the government what they really want. We just don't know what that is.
Well, let's talk about her existence in jail, because she's been in jail. And of course, we have both arguments. We have the defense saying she's mistreated, she's a famous figure, she's at risk, she's not being protected. Then you have the prosecution saying, actually, she's getting better treatment than most of the other inmates. How do we ever know which is really true about that, Jack?
See, that's the problem, right? I mean, we want everybody to be treated the same, and yet I still would argue they need to be treated humanely. And one of the issues we always have is the question of safety. And she is famous, undoubtedly, and because of that, there is the potential that she can be targeted. So sometimes you do have to provide more protection. At the same time, the idea that you say, oh, you're one of the exalted few. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. We will treat you differently. Here, you're sweet. It's over here, right? And like, well, let's see how that plays.
Right, and it's not really a suite in jail, right? No matter how well you might be treated, it is still jail. Your freedoms are still restricted. What about suicide watch? Is it an automatic thing, Josh? Do you think because she got this sentence, she's automatically on it?
Standard operating procedure for virtually every penal institution in America. Immediately after sentence, anything significant, there's going to be heightened suicide prevention protocol, because it's a known and regular fact that people get really despondent when their entire life has now been set in motion. There's not an escape from federal time. It's day for day. And theoretically, Ms. Maxwell's looking at not getting out of prison until she's 80. That means if she survives that long with the hazards of being incarcerated as an older individual, there's a lot at play. She'll definitely be on some heightened suicide watch until she gets back to a kind of center point. And that's when I think we're going to see some real machinations from her team.
Well, you also know that, I mean, you got to understand what it's like to walk back after somebody gets sentenced like that, and you're sitting in a little cell with them, and they're looking at you, and they're looking at the world, and you're literally watching them sort of unravel in front of you. It's hard to explain what that means, because it takes them a little while, and when they start to do it, they're looking at you, and they're staring at the walls around them, and it's as if that cell gets smaller and smaller and smaller in front of you. It is the weirdest, strangest thing, and as a defense attorney, it's impossible to describe.
Do you think that she's going to file an appeal right away? Because arguably she has money, funds that she can hire good attorneys and keep on going.
They'll kick this down the appellate road as long as she wants to keep going. And every time they file an appeal, it gives another opportunity for her to interact with the federal government regarding what she still has. That's the important part.
That's the trick, right? See, that's how you work your way backward. The idea is to come back and say, we're going to file this appeal, we're going to make all of these grounds, and now you can come back and say, or we can find a, well, you know, easier, simpler way to just, right? We could do that.
But why wouldn't you do that initially? I'm watching you two, and I can see the wheels turning. Why wouldn't you do that from the beginning? Why wait until she now has a sentence of 20 years?
I'm not going to negotiate against my eventual position. Everybody knew there was a high likelihood of getting convicted from day one. So you're not going to go blow that out in the middle of trial or negotiations and waste your ace in the hole. There's no way. You need to keep that. That's the most valuable thing she has right now.
Yeah, and Epstein's dead. someone's going to have to pay the price for this. We knew this was going to be a piece of that. Is there an element that says that? No, of course not. But everybody in the room knows Epstein is dead. Somebody's going to have to pay for this. And they knew it was going to come down on her.
And
they knew it.
And I would suggest one thing a government's not going to play with are charges of sexual abuse, sexual trafficking of youth and young. That's not going to happen. These children need to be protected. They've now been protected with this sentence. Hold that thought, Josh, for just a minute, because we do want to listen to some background information and about this case we're going to share with you now.
A unanimous jury has found Ghislaine Maxwell guilty of one of the worst crimes imaginable, facilitating and participating in the sexual abuse of children, crimes that she committed with her longtime partner and co-conspirator, Jeffrey Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell, longtime girlfriend of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein, was convicted for her role in the recruitment and sexual abuse of young girls last December.
Maxwell and Epstein had a method. Typically, they would befriend these young girls by asking them questions about their lives, pretending to be taking an interest in them. They would take them to the movies and treat them to shopping trips. Maxwell would encourage these young girls to accept offers from Epstein to pay for their travel and their education, making these young victims feel indebted to Jeffrey Epstein.
Investigators say Maxwell played a key role in what has long been believed to be a sex trafficking operation that spanned decades and crossed continents.
After developing a rapport with the victims, Maxwell then tried to normalize sexual abuse with a minor victim through a process known as grooming. For example, Maxwell would discuss sexual topics with the victim and undress in front of the victim or be present for sex acts involving the minor victims and Epstein. Maxwell's presence as an adult woman helped put the victims at ease.
The road to justice has been far too long. I want to commend the bravery of the girls, now grown women, who stepped out of the shadows and into the courtroom. Their courage and willingness to face their abuser made this case possible.
Maxwell's guilty verdicts came 2 years after Jeffrey Epstein's own indictment in 2019 on federal sex trafficking charges of minors in Florida and New York. But he never stood trial. Guards found Epstein in his jail cell, unresponsive. The medical examiner ruled his death a suicide.
Certainly, we're going to continue to bring you updated news regarding Ghislaine Maxwell and her 20-year sentence. Also coming up, more breaking news, this time about Scott Peterson. The man convicted of killing his wife, Lacey, and their unborn son is trying to get a new trial.